Welcome back. Are you ready? Today feels like the day that I make a dedicated video to the topic of shame. Now, if you've heard any of my other videos, I reference shame a lot because of my own personal afflictions, I would say. It seems to be the underlying cause of so many symptoms that I've faced in my life is shame. But this is where I believe that I'm receiving knowledge that it's not just me. This is actually kind of and I'm still, I'm still walking this out, right? But this is just what's coming to me now. So very much take it back to the Holy Spirit and, find out what is for you and what is not. But I feel like shame is the underlying mark on humanity, right? Like the infliction to humanity universally, meaning it's the biggest sin out there. It's the biggest cause of so many symptoms that we face. Alcoholism, pornography addiction, If you were to take the shame out of these things, I believe that the actual activity will just fade away. Because it's the shame that has us go back to what we are dependent upon. And what is this shame? I'll describe it in a bunch of different ways. But I believe that it is, at its core, a belief system. It is a belief in a lie, meaning you have been deceived. You have been deceived to believe that a lie is true. And one can only be deceived to believe that a lie is true whenever they are in darkness. That's why shame in the light cannot survive. That's why shame has to survive in the dark. So you have to be ready to hear a video like this, meaning the Holy Spirit has to position you to be able to hear it, because most people, I believe, are subconsciously running away from shame. They're running away from this very deep subconscious belief in them that they're not enough, right? But they wouldn't say it. They're like, no, I'm just ambitious, right? No, you're chasing, you're ambitious because you're trying to outrun this shame, this belief in this lie that you're lacking. If I'm not ambitious, if I am not working hard, if I am not diligent, then I am not enough. I do not measure up. So whatever it is, there are so many symptoms, but the underlying condition seems to be this shame. It marked Adam and Eve. This is why after they were deceived, they felt naked, right? And God said, where did you go, Adam? Because Adam began to hide from God because of the shame. He felt ashamed. He felt lacking. And I will say that shame in my own personal life, and maybe you can relate, feels a lot like feeling guilty, but with no way of being justified. Meaning you feel wrong with there's no potential way of feeling right. You just feel it and you can't be right. Right? And the hopelessness that comes with shame for me has been so great. Because I feel like every conversation I've had, every way that I've worded my words, every way that I've felt something or responded to something was then measured later. Right? These accusatory spirits would come and they would shame me. And they continue to do so. And this has worn me down over time. But this is where, in my weakness, I have come to God, because it seems that God has the cure for shame. When we can only treat it, when we can only try to run from it, He actually has the cure. And the cure seems to be the truth that will set you free from the shame. But we were taught And what becomes normal to us is try to outrun what we subconsciously believe. But it will sneak up on you when you're having a particular day where you're kind of weak and you're not performing the way that you usually perform. This is probably where you'll be accused. You won't be accused whenever you're feeling like you're doing all the right things. Because when you feel like you're doing all the right things, it is a perfect distraction. It's a perfect mask to cover the shame. It's a perfect way to pretend like it's not there. But you will find that it is there on those days where you don't feel like you are performing the way that you usually do. But this is where, and you can see a lot of videos that give you what I would call a power up to get a little bit ahead of shame. Right? Here's what you can do today to make your life better. Here's what you can do today to make your life better. Right? And people are very attracted to this because there's something about shame and wanting to prove that it's wrong in your own right. Right? You feel like you're lacking, so you want to prove that you are not lacking. But that's not going to work that way. You are the weak one. God is the one who knows who you are. He will have to be the one that convinces you that you are not lacking. But the self-help way seems to be very popular because we want to go about and establish our own righteousness. And this seems to be a symptom of shame that you wouldn't otherwise need for yourself, want for your pride or your ego if you didn't feel subconsciously, if you didn't believe that you weren't lacking. So it kind of just like ends up happening like that. And I won't pretend like it's not there. I don't think I can anymore. But basically, like, I will talk about these things because what I desire for you and what I desire for me is not for you to have a power up boost a couple of miles between you and the shame that you're running from, but you meeting the shame with his honor, and then the shame no longer having a place to go because you are now living in the light, confidently free in yourself, no longer needing to prove anything to anyone, no longer needing to run, no longer needing to hide, no longer trying to distract yourself. You are free, my child. That's what I desire for you. That's what I desire for me. And this is where God has come to me and he's like, you have been greatly deceived, Brandon. And for someone who's been under the influence of shame his whole life, has just felt like this is what's normal. I am lacking. That's the truth. If I were to be dragged into the light, the truth would be that I am lacking. But that's where I've been deceived. This is why we try to hide in the dark. It's because of the shame. Because it comes with believing a lie. That whenever you are actually brought into the light, what is exposed about you is that you've been deceived to believe a lie. Instead of the lie being true in the light exposes how you've been deceived to believe a lie. You've been deceived to believe that you are lacking, that you don't measure up. And I think that in the church, not every church, right, but like kind of a modern thing that we're trying to understand in our own way is we think that we're going to cover ourselves with his righteousness, right, while we're still wearing the shame. And that's just not that's not how it's going to work. The grave clothes have to come off before you become one who is ready to be robed in righteousness. I really do believe that, because otherwise it becomes a religious activity to serve God and to be with God. This is how religion and self-effort and the self-effort in religion and all these religious activities become so normal in the church. It's because it just becomes another covering to try to hide from shame, to try to run from shame. I'm going to do this in my own strength, but I'm not going to call it that. Prayer has become very much a religious self-effort type deal. How could it not? The real issue is the shame. And it is not your fault, friend. And it is not my fault. But for someone who has been under the influence of shame, it's impossible to believe that it's not your fault. God tells me all the time, this isn't your fault. But I don't think that he's trying to convince me of anything, but he's laying the groundwork for a miracle. He's laying the groundwork for something he's going to do in me where I become confident that this was a lie that I believed. And believing this lie wasn't my fault. I was deceived because I was in the dark. But he has taken me into marvelous light. And in marvelous light, I see the truth now. And I am set free by that truth. I'm no longer having to cover myself because of the shame. I'm no longer trying to outrun it. I have met it dead on in a way like maybe you've heard. I think we all have to face our demons. But shame is one of those things, man, where you just can't ever get it right, no matter what you do. And I think that for a time, there will be this delusion that you believe that you can, in whatever way that is. Like if you have like body dysmorphia because of shame, like the symptom of shame is you see yourself and you're like not happy with your appearance, the way that you look, your body, then what you can do from a delusionary place is be like, okay, I'm gonna like work out, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do this. Like working out on its own is not a bad thing, but the underlying motivation will tell where a person is in their actual heart, and how that just becomes just like running around the same block, you know, a restless pursuit to get to a standard that is constantly moving. That's the thing about shame. It's trying to, whenever you try to like handle it in your own strength, you are basically trying to find a standard that doesn't exist. It's a standard that maybe others in darkness have created and has become normal, but it's an impossible standard. It's not something that can ever happen. Say if you're a woman and you want to be smaller and you see women and you're like, I want to get small like that. And then those women that are smaller, right, more petite, they actually want to be more curvy, right? And so no one's happy with anyone else's, with their own body, right? And I think this is because of shame. It's not because you need to slim down or you need to bulk up. No, that's just what you tell yourself. Underneath it all seems to be this shame. And in order for you to be set free, you have to be confronted with this. And maybe this is your time. And maybe this is the video that's going to illuminate this dark place in you. Because it seems to be like, if I were to look at the response that humanity has to shame, it's trying to hide from it. It's trying to suppress the truth. It's trying to get away from it as far as possible, distract myself, pretend like it's not there. And I think the reason why we do this is because we know, and I think this is the truth that we actually suppress. We know that we can't do anything about that. We know that we need a power greater than ourselves to tell us who we are, that then sets us free, liberates us from a lie that we have believed. So we know we can't set ourselves free in that. And so what we do is we just hide, we run, we pretend like it's not there. And I think this is what humans will do in the dark, suppressing the truth of their weakness. This is why weakness is not something to be very proud of on this earth or whatever. Like, this is why whenever you talk about weakness, it's like people say, well, I had a moment of weakness, but like I won't let that happen again, because I'm not going to allow myself to feel that. Yeah, you're getting closer to the shame, friend. You're getting closer to where you've been shamed in your weakness. But God doesn't see you that way. And eventually, in relationship with God, to grow in intimacy with God, the shame is going to have to be brought up, because he doesn't see you the way you see you. He doesn't feel about you the way you feel about you. And so someone has believed a lie, and it's you. I have been dealing with this my whole life. He seems to have brought me very much to a crossroads, and I can't cross the road. I am in a helpless state as I am waiting on him to deliver me from my accusers, because that seems to be the only quality of life worth living. Because this way of going about has completely diminished me, right? It's like, I feel like it's always been there. These accusations, these demonic influences that have shamed me, but over the last couple of years, there no longer became a grace to hide, right? And what I mean by that is, we're not ready to face this until we're ready to face this. Meaning, I think God has to develop trust with you to get you to a certain place to expose where you have been deceived, right? Because to face the truth, you have to be prepared for that. Because he's not going to just deliver you from shame. He's going to show you the truth. And the truth is going to come with a death to the lie, the life that you lived, living the lie. And that's going to be very weird. If you've been deceived most of your life thinking that it's true, that's one of the things about being deceived, is you don't think that you were deceived. And so until you were exposed that you were deceived, you believe that the lie that you've been living is true. And from that place, well, it's going to be very, very like backwards whenever you come to know of the truth. I keep referencing Paul and Saul, but it's very true. It's that he was blinded by the light. He was living a life in the dark, not thinking it was dark. And then the light comes on and gives him some context. Oh, actually, it was very dark, but I couldn't tell how dark it was until the light came. You must be prepared for that light. You must be prepared for that truth. But I believe that in the relationship with God, it will progress to this place. Because I think for a time he will meet us where we are, and he will in a sense try to help us establish our own righteousness. Right? He will try to help us cover ourselves. Because he's just meeting us where we are. You know, so he will be like, no, yes, like I'm meeting you where you are in your understanding. You feel ashamed. Let me help you not feel ashamed. Here is the truth. But eventually I have to show you that you have been deceived to believe a lie. You've been deceived to believe a lie, and you are helpless to know the truth. You can't just hear it. You have to receive it. And to receive it is a timing thing. You have to be prepared, because once you know the truth, you don't unknow the truth. And I feel like I've been in this transitionatory whatever place where what I know is I've been deceived, but I don't quite know the truth. I'm growing in knowing the truth, but what I experience on a day-to-day basis is just realizing how much I've believed a lie. When you look at your life and you say, I've believed a lie for so long, it's going to come with this grief, right? As you start to process the fact that, holy shit, like I actually am not defective like I thought I was defective. I was operating in a way that I believed I was defective. I thought that was normal. I was deceived. But the truth is, I'm not defective like that. And the truth is, there was a time that I could run from this because I wasn't ready to confront it. And I thought whenever I did confront it, that these accusations coming against me would be true about me, because that's what my life has felt like. You might be coming to know the truth, but what has your life felt like? What has your life felt like? What about your life has made such a convincing argument against you? I think it's in everybody. It's just, are you ready to face it or not? And you will be ready whenever he has you ready. But all of the symptoms that people are trying to deal with on the surface, to me, is just the underlying issue is shame. And they're trying to treat something when really you need a cure. You tell someone who has experienced a lot of shame in their life that they're an overthinker, all they hear is another thing they can't get right. It's really hard to comfort someone who has been influenced by such amount of shame. It's because what they hear is they can't get it right, and they never will. And here's another thing that's wrong about them. So whenever they're alone, after the conversation is over, this is where they would be tormented. Another thing to look at that doesn't measure up about them. It has hit me on all sides. And I have been in a helpless state in need of God. And God says, I know the truth. I know what I'm going to do with you. I know how I'm going to deal with this. And I've just been waiting on him in that. But what I do know, there was grace to continue to run and hide from this because I wasn't ready to face it. And now there seems to be a grace because he has shifted me, a grace to confront it. A grace to be in it, to face it, to feel it. And oh, have I felt it. And it is strong. Because when you are able to run from it and pretend like it's not there, it seems to be kind of dormant, right? So when you start to feel any kind of like part of it, right? Any kind of part of the shame, you just reject it, push it off of you, go and you do the next thing. I'm going to go be busy because I don't want to feel like that again. But eventually I believe God will bring you to a place where you're not able to push it back like that. He will zap the strength from you and you will just have to feel it. And in feeling it, you will come to know of your weakness. And in coming to know of your weakness, you will come to know of where you need his strength to be. My grace is sufficient in your weakness. I must be the one to convince you of the truth. This is where you need me. This is where the unbelief is. But you tell someone who's felt ashamed about unbelief, they're going to be like, that's not enough belief. What do I do to become, how do I increase my faith? How do I believe more, right? How do I become more confident? It's because you're seeing it from a place of lack, but he doesn't see it from a place of lack. He sees it from a place of a need to believe. Verse, not enough belief. But for someone who's in shame, they see, oh, unbelief, that's not enough belief. I'm lacking. How do I fill my cup so that I'm not lacking? And it's like, well, you have to be emptied of everything that's in that cup, the belief that you've had that you were lacking, to actually receive the belief, the truth that you were whole, that you have always been whole. And so before he robes you in righteousness, I believe that there is a shedding of your old garments, and that is the grave clothes of shame, where you've believed that you don't measure up. I want this dealt with on this earth. It seems to be everyone's underlying issue. And I hate it. I hate it because it's not true. Because whenever you bring shame into the light, you see that it was a lie. It can only exist in the dark. But are you ready for that? Because a life in the dark is a whole life in the dark. If you get brought into the light, it's not just a change in your behavior. It's a completely new life. You will not operate like you operated in the dark. When you come to know of the truth that is shown to you in the light, you will not operate the way that you operated in the dark. You must be ready for that. And I think that I'm in a process, I'm being prepared for that more and more, and it seems to be so damn slow. Shame, man. And it can make you feel like you're drowning. But you get used to feeling like you're drowning. Because the hopelessness and shame is like a wet blanket that you can't take off. But your like physical senses, my physical senses are firing like crazy. Like I'm in fight and flight mode or whatever. Fight or flight mode. Because I'm like, something is off, but I can't do anything about it. And so I just have to sit in this. That's what it's felt like to wait on God. That's what it's felt like. Like, what am I waiting on him for? I think one of the big things that I'm waiting on him for is to deliver me from the shame. And for the most part, waiting on him has felt like sitting in the shame and not being able to take the shame off of me. No longer able to hide or pretend like it's not there, because there's nothing in my life to hide in anymore. Maybe you're there, maybe he's preparing you to get there. I don't really know. I don't love it. It's the hardest thing that I've ever had to do. And it's still so difficult. And nobody has a cure. Because they themselves are also dealing with it. There's just, where are they in relationship to knowing that that's their issue? I don't know. I can't really help you with that. I think there's just some places where God has to come in that no man has access to. He may be using me, right? He is speaking through me. He's put his words in my mouth. That is what he has told me. I have put my words in your mouth. And so maybe he is reaching out to somebody. Maybe he is. I would expect it. I don't know what else I'm doing here. And he's like, no. It's not these surface level symptoms that you were talking about. I want to come after the shame. Eventually, it's time for me to come after the shame. Because this is where the disconnect is in our relationship. You still think that I'm going to punish you. You still think that I'm a certain kind of way. You still think that I am not good. And I don't blame you for this. You have been tainted by the stain of shame. You can't help but feel like you have to constantly cover yourself. You can't help but feel like you are guilty, but you can never be not guilty. There's nothing you can do. He's like, I understand this place in you, because I know where you were first deceived to believe that you were lacking. I remember where your innocence was robbed, where it was taken from you, where you began to believe the lie and then felt naked, so then you started to cover yourself with many things. So he's not looking at you. He's not looking at me, even though it feels like that. And he's expecting me to do something. He's like, no. What can you do? What more can you do? But at the right time, I will do it. I think that when he's talking about providing a way out, I don't think it's an immediate way out. When the word talks about that, and he will not give you anything more than you can bear, or something like that. I don't know. And they talk about a way out. I feel like the church has said, yes, the way out is in the moment, so that you're not tempted by the thing that you were doing. Well, you're only tempted to do the thing because you're trying to cover yourself. You're only trying to cover yourself because you believe that you're lacking. So how is he supposed to give you a way out? It's not a way out of doing that thing that you do. It's a way out of believing what you've believed, a lie. The way out is the truth that sets you free. So that what? It reverse engineers everything. You're no longer tempted because you no longer feel like you're lacking. You no longer feel like you're lacking. You're not tempted. Jesus knew this when he was brought into the wilderness. He knew of his wholeness. He could not be tempted like that. He could not be deceived like that, because he knew his Father. And I think this is where God is going to take us, and where we need to go. And this is the way out. The way out is into marvelous light. The way out is not out of what we're being tempted by in the moment, but how that temptation allows us to fall into sin. I say it like that because, whatever. We fall into sin, which then shows us where we are weak, which then shows us where we've been deceived to believe shame about our weakness. And he's like, aha, the shame part. I need to take this out, and I need to actually come into this place where you've been shamed and give you honor. And in me giving you honor, you are receiving a measure of light that's coming into the darkness, that is setting you free from believing that you were lacking when you do this or that. Because it never ends. The shame cycle never ends if we try to handle it in our own strength. But you might be in a place where that's just what you're going to do. And this video won't be for you. And maybe it'll be for you in a couple of years or something. Because I know that you have to be prepared to face this. It's not something that you can just logically be like, yeah, it's the shame. No, dude. This is the one place in you don't want to admit to yourself. This is the one place in you, most likely, if you know what I'm talking about, if the Holy Spirit is making it true to you, that you don't want to confront. It's the place in you that you're just like, no, I can't. I know, trust me. But I don't think it's just me. I think it's actually the underlying mark, the underlying affliction that has left such a mark on humanity. And it is a lie, but we have been deceived to believe a lie. And now we are tangled up in that lie. And we need him to untangle us from the lie and to bring us into marvelous truth and to honor us in the places where we have been shamed, that have left marks, that have left wounds on our souls. Sexual shame, that's got to be the biggest one. What deep afflictions that leaves a person. A sin against the body indeed. I feel like for me, he is the hope. This is what I believe that you will hear in my videos. Maybe it feels uncomfortable. It's because I'm coming in and I'm poking at what hurts in you. I'm coming in and I'm exposing where it really is, where the affliction is. This is what I've found with God, and I feel like it's cruel. But if he didn't do that, I wouldn't know it was there or wasn't there. And I kind of need to know that something is there, right? So he has to poke at it. He has to poke at where it hurts. I'm not going to try to cover this up with a Band-Aid. I'm not going to try to give you a power-up boost to get a little bit further away from the shame. That's going to be the more popular message that you're going to hear. But it won't set you free. It will not set you free. And I desire for you and for me to be set free for good. Is it possible? I'll tell you, there's just no way of actually having a quality of life trying to outrun shame. It will always come and find you. Because you are a human being and you can't perform optimally all the time. And to try to perform optimally for all the time, it's not a very good life anyway. Feel ashamed. It's like talking about sin, because I think that they are pretty close together. Sin is to miss the mark, but it's not. It's miss the mark in your identity. It's not miss the mark in your activities or something. So it's you miss the mark in your perspective. So I'm right, I'm whole, right? I am his, he loves me. Missing the mark of that is I'm lacking, he's not pleased with me. I am not. There is the I am tree and there is the I am not tree. And we have been eating from the I am not tree for so long. I won't help you try to cover this. covering it up seems to be a temporary solution that works, but it has you now the one enslaved to yourself to keep running and keep hiding and keep pretending. It just comes after you in a different way. You're just now enslaved in a different way. People don't want to face this in themselves because this is where they are weak. We don't like to hear things about, it seems like we don't like to hear words like unbelief and shame. But I'm like, let's talk about this, because this is where it's at. People are praying from a symptom place, but God sees deeper than that. He's like, I don't want to give you a treatment. I don't want prayer to be a treatment. I don't want this to be a treatment for you. I want to give you the cure. But I have to show you this is actually like a disease that you can't manage. I have to show you that this is an affliction that you can't heal yourself from. I have to show you that I have to be the one and only one who can convince you of who you really are. And in the convincing of who you really are in me, the shame will have no place to exist. But I have to bring you into the light and show you where you've been deceived. And that's going to feel so uncomfortable. I wonder what he's going to do next.